begin a brand new series of Manifest Telecast, and I normally don't have other guests on the program. If you have watched my program for 21 years, you'll know that. I don't have many guests. But we had such a great response from Tony Scott teaching the Kingdom. And he had a series of revelations that he needs to tell you about. That's why we're having Pastor Tony Scott from Ohio back with us. These messages are going to transform the situation that you're in. I want you to trust me on that. 4 series. Now, also, before we introduce Tony, our book is out called The Visions, and I want you to be sure and wait till the end of the program. I'm going to tell you how to get the book and a brand new CD album. All right, Tony Scott, I don't think you need an introduction with our people. One of my dearest friends in all the world. I started to say one of my oldest friends, but that's not really true.
Floyd's older than I am.
Yeah, my other buddy's older. Tell us the subject and let's just get started, because I know people are excited about this.
Well, I think one of the perhaps the big challenges of our Christian faith is that there is a war and there is a conflict that's going on, but sometimes we personalize it to the point that we take God out of it. And here's what I mean by that. In Ephesians chapter 4, Paul is speaking to the fact that we are to be angry and sin not. That's a really difficult thing. When you've been hurt, if someone has unjustly accused you, I've had that happen to me. If someone is mounting warfare against you for whatever reason, they don't like you or whatever the case might be, very often you can get angry. But here's what God said, be angry and sin not. And then he literally qualifies it by saying, do not let the sun go down on your wrath. And he tells us why. This is why. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord, I will repay. And for years I read that scripture, Perry, and I would think of God taking it out on my enemies. Mm-hmm. But that's really not what he's saying.
So in other words, we read that to say, if someone has done you wrong, I'm going to go after them. That's how, and I've heard that my whole life taught that.
Yes.
So you're telling me that's not really the meaning of that.
That is not it.
All right, this is going to get interesting.
Yeah, that's only a portion of it.
Okay,
so
a portion
the
of
real meaning there is, and if you go through the Bible, you will see this. When God says, vengeance is mine, I will repay, this is his message. I will repay you. I will repay you for the harm that's been done to you. I will repay you for what you've suffered through. And, you know, we can look no further than Joseph and look at Joseph's life and look at what God did for Joseph. I don't see his brothers suffering. I don't see his brothers having a problem. I mean, they threw him into a pit. Then they went and got him out of the pit and they sold him for 20 pieces of silver when a normal price for a slave was 30 pieces of silver. So very demeaning, very devalued. You're worth nothing. Wow. You're a worthless little runt.
Wow.
But you see, Joseph had a dream. And in that dream, at 17 years of age, God began to reveal to him his destiny and his purpose. And if you follow the story, you'll see what I'm talking about from Ephesians 4. Vengeance is mine, I will repay. So what did God do? He raised Joseph up. He gave Joseph the premier position in Egypt. He literally gave him, if you read the story in Genesis chapter 37, 38, 39, he actually became the prime minister of Egypt, and he had the key to the total treasure of Egypt.
Yeah,
he was in control. He was in charge.
You know what's funny about that? They put him in prison, and they trusted. He had such favor. That give him the keys to the prison.
They gave him the keys.
Yes. That's giving the prisoner the key.
Okay, but see, now, that's God repaying Joseph for the evil that's been done to him. But you don't hear anything happening to his brothers. Read the story.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have thought some calamity would have fell upon them. I mean, here they are attacking the servant of God, somebody that God has chosen, given dreams to, and manifested those dreams in their life.
Right.
And here's what I try to say to people. You should never, ever let what you see, what's going on around you, be greater than who God sees you are. Don't ever let your circumstance that you're looking at be greater than who God sees you to be. At any given time, this is a true statement, you are more than you have become. You are more than you have become. And so what is God trying to do? Let's go to the book of Proverbs.
Okay.
So the book of Proverbs, the Bible says that many are the plans in a man's heart. Proverbs chapter 18. But it is the Lord's purpose for him that will prevail. Now just listen to that verse. I read that verse wrongly for many years. Many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose for him that will prevail. And what he's trying to say there is, if you live your God-ordained purpose, you will never, ever fail. You cannot fail if you live God's purpose. Doesn't mean you won't be challenged. Then later on, listen to what he says in Proverbs 20. He follows that up and he says, the purposes of a man's heart are buried deep inside of his spirit, but a man of understanding, or a test, or a trial, or a circumstance will pull up out of him who he is. And the reason he can't see it is he's become comfortable with the level in which he's living spiritually. Oh my God, I feel his presence. And God has to allow an attack of some kind to get him refocused on God, hearing the voice of God, listening to the voice of God. Because the very first thing we do when we go through a test and a trial, most often for most Christians, is we stop hearing the voice of God.
Why do we stop hearing the voice of God?
Because we think we must do something to address the attack. We must step up. We must take vengeance. And God is saying, no. You stay in my presence. Ooh. You hear my voice. You let me guide you. Wow. You let me direct you. You don't listen to the voice of the enemy. You listen to my voice.
Wow. So in other words, the key, there's so many things right now that's kind of going around in my spirit about what you just said, is that instead of sometimes, instead of rebuking a test, God has put us into the test because we are moving in a direction of our choice instead of his perfect choice and his better place for us.
You've chosen the comfort of your flesh. Wow. So you get into a vein, you get into a comfortable situation. God never called us to be in a comfortable position. He's not concerned about your comfort. He's concerned, as has been said many times, about your character. He's concerned about what he's put inside of you. And so the money is coming in, the bills are paid, we're doing well, we get comfortable, and God says, you're too comfortable. So I'm going to allow something to come your way because I'm going to stir up your nest. I'm going to pull out of you what I put inside, even though you don't want to dig any deeper. You don't want to go in. I'm going to push you deeper inside of your spirit. I'm going to allow something that you can't handle. I'm going to allow something you don't have an answer for. And I'm going to show up and I'm going to show you my glory.
And even going back to the time of Joseph, if we look at the entire incident, it was really planned from the Lord from the very start. So in other words, them selling him to the Ishmaelites brought them down to Egypt, sold him to Potiphar's house. He was falsely accused of adultery, went to jail for years. I think it may have been 10 years or to 13. He goes to prison, but then at the right time, he is brought out for this purpose, to keep much people alive. God knew a famine was coming. God knew that the only food that would be there would be through Joseph setting up the food plan of Egypt. And so the very brothers, and can I throw something in here?
Sure.
I mean,
it's your program.
Well, I know you told me that last time, but I want you to do a lot of the teaching because I know people want to hear you. But I was thinking about, if you'll go back and read about Joseph's dream, he said that the 11 sheaves bowed down before him.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes, I do.
And he had the dream of 11 stars, and really there's 12 major constellations.
Yes.
And I don't want to get into this because some people think it's controversy, but every tribe of Israel is under one, a symbol. This is not astrology, but the Lion of Judah.
Yes.
There's a lion in heaven, and that's Judah's emblem. So originally, it was meant to intend to be the story of Israel and God and the gospel, but the Babylonians and Egyptians corrupted it all. And that's all I'm going to say. Please don't write me about your opinion on that, okay?
Okay, so let's just go back a little bit before we do all that.
Right.
Let's go back, and you're Jacob, and you have this son, and he's extremely gifted.
Right.
You know, a lot of stuff is said, and a lot of preachers preach about this colorful robe that Joseph had. Actually, I don't see it as a multicolored robe. There was a multicolored band on the sleeves and the sash and around the bottom.
Right.
And it was indicative of someone who's administratively gifted. It's like a supervisor. It's someone who's in charge.
So you think Jacob saw that in him?
He saw it in his son.
Because he was a visionary.
Oh, yes.
Dreamer.
He saw the gifts and talents, and he turned his whole house. Now, listen, this man was worth a lot of money. Turned the whole thing over to Joseph, 17 years of age.
It's true.
Probably 15 or 16 when he was running his father's entire conglomerate.
And all the sons are in the field working, and Joseph is just out there running around.
He's running the show. But listen to this.
I can see that. That's funny.
This is what's important.
Okay.
God knew the destiny he had for Jacob.
Okay.
Rather for Joseph.
For Joseph, yeah.
So if he goes to Jacob and says, I'm going to take your son down to Egypt, and I'm going to let your son be groomed for Pharaoh's kingdom.
Ooh.
And I'm going to let him be a ruler. Because he loved him so much, he more than likely would have said no.
He'd never let him go from
Never
home.
let him go.
He needed
He
him.
would have held on to him.
Wow, I haven't seen that before.
He loved him so much.
Yeah.
But you see what God does, he ignores you in your fleshly attitudes, and he works his plan regardless of you, even his ministers. He works his plan. He does his thing. And so he allowed all of this stuff.
Right.
He permitted. He couldn't have been thrown into the pit if God didn't permit it. He couldn't have been sold to the Israelites if God didn't permit it. Couldn't have been put in prison because of Potiphar's wife if God didn't permit it.
Wow.
But what God is saying is, I'm going to use this man, but for 13 years, from 17 to 30, he's going to go through hell.
Boy, he did.
And he went through hell.
It said the word of the Lord tried him in Psalms.
Yes, but it also says 3 different times in his story, and the presence of the Lord was with
And the Lord was
Joseph.
with Joseph.
The Lord was with
In prison,
Joseph.
he was with
He
him.
was
In
with
Potiphar's
him.
house.
Every step of the way, Joseph had a peace about where he was. He didn't like it. He didn't want to be there. But he had a peace about it. And then what does God do? God lifts him up. God begins to minister to him. And God puts him where he wants him to be. But all the while, I'm expecting vengeance on the sons. I'm expecting God to knock them down, knock them over. I mean, why are they still living? Look at what they've done. And God just ignores all that. He didn't even do anything to those sons. Nothing to those sons. Wow. Maybe they had a guilty conscience. Maybe they felt bad, but the Bible doesn't say that. Not until later when they get caught.
That's right.
But what does God do? He just keeps on elevating Joseph. And so here's my point. If you go through hell, and you will go through hell if you serve God, I want you to remember 2 things. The first thing is, I want you to always choose to be a victor and never choose to be a victim. And I'm going to say it again. If you live with a victor mentality, you will overcome every attack of the enemy. If you live with a victim mentality, poor me, look what's happening to me, cry, I can't understand this. Why would God let this happen to me? What have I done to deserve this? Which is what we do say sometimes. I don't mind telling you, I went through that kind of hell with my wife, leaving to go to heaven on August the 18th, 2020, 4:05 a.m. in the morning. I cried, I sought God, I was angry, I didn't agree with God's decision not to heal her. So I'm telling you, I've had pain. That was the greatest pain that I could ever suffer in this life. And God knew that that was going to be painful. Shirley knew that that was going to be painful for me. She knew that I was going to struggle if she didn't make it. She tried every way in the world to make it. But for whatever reason, God permitted this. Now, here's the thing that is important to all of us. God permits tests, trials, challenges, not to defeat you, not to diminish you, but to unleash the potential that is inside of you that you will never dig out on your own, and to show you His glory. And also because people are watching you, He wants to reveal to those people His power in your life so that when He comes and He exacts vengeance on your enemies, they will look and see that God has exalted you.
Wow. Now let me say something, and I want to say, I was saying this earlier, but I felt like I need to say this. If you look at Joseph's dreams, he dreamed of 11 sheaves and 11 stars, right?
Yes.
Bowing before him.
Yes.
Did you ever notice that when the sons came to get food in Egypt, they did not know Joseph was, because he was dressed like an Egyptian.
Yes.
They shaved his hair, and that's what Egyptians did, and they didn't recognize him.
Yes.
He'd been gone 13 years.
Yes.
Now watch this. When the 10 brothers shows up, he never tells them who he is.
Never told.
They show up again, 10, and then he says to them, do you have another brother? And the dad did not want the younger brother, to come.
Benjamin.
Yes. Only when, I love this, the 11 brothers showed up, that's when he revealed himself.
Yes.
And the point I want to make is that when God gives you a dream, which He gave Joseph,
yes,
your dreams do not always happen when you think they should happen. They have to happen.
Nor in the way that you think.
Or in a way, that's right. And you have to realize that God has timings set that are not your timings. And I've had the Lord, and I won't go into it, show me some things that are going to happen in the future. And I have said to God, I've actually prayed, well, I don't want to get into that, but I've said to God, why don't you speed this up? And He is just silent on it because it has to happen at the right moment, at the right time.
Yes.
And so Joseph's brothers came at the peak of the famine, at the right moment, at the right time for him to reveal himself. And then at the end, and I don't want to get out of your message, but it says that what you intended for evil, God intended for good.
Now say that again.
Okay, Genesis chapter 50. Is it 50?
Yeah, chapter 50, yes.
God, this is what Joseph says to his brothers and the families together.
Yes.
You intended this for evil.
For evil.
But God intended it for good to keep much people alive. In other words, what you thought was my destruction ended up being my blessing.
Yes.
That ended up keeping this whole nation alive.
Yes.
So what people intend, and the enemy, let me get people out of it. It's the enemy. What the enemy intends many times, and you see it all through the Bible, to be your end, your conclusion, your finishing. What you're saying is that God's purpose in allowing anything like this to happen to a person, whatever it might be, you will not always see the reasoning at the moment or shortly after the moment or 6 months or a year into it. You may not even in this life get an answer. Even with Shirley, you may come to the point where the Lord will never tell you till you get to heaven. Here's why, Tony. But in the process of it all, I know that Shirley used to say, you need to have Tony on the program sometime, Perry. You need to have Tony on the program. And you know, when she passed away, God started giving you a word. Now this is crazy, that you didn't get on the level till she passed away. And the Lord said, He's got something to tell people. Isn't that strange?
It is strange.
So something good we see in reaching more people. What does Joseph do? He reached the world by saving him, and you're reaching the world now with messages that were birthed in you that I'll have to say, even with me, some messages are not birthed until you go through something. You know that. There's things birthed that you birth by experience, and there's things you birth by reading the Word. And I know when you go through the experience, people tend to really, I don't want to say, well, I'm not going to say that because it's going to sound wrong, but we trust the Word, but when people have gone through it and come through it, they have a point of reference.
Yes.
That's what I'm going to say.
So let's just walk through the Word for a moment. I like to go to the Word to let people hear what's in the Bible.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the book of Proverbs for just a moment. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 13. By sorrows of the heart, the spirit is broken. It's hard to make it through the day, is what it's saying, because of the sorrows of the heart. The spirit is, our hearts are just rent in two because of things that happen. Proverbs 17:22, a broken spirit dries the bones. Now listen to this. It'll leave you bone tired. It'll leave you bone weary because you have a broken spirit. And a broken spirit comes when the attacks of the enemy come against you, just like they did against David. And then in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 14, a healthy spirit conquers adversity. But what can you do when the spirit is crushed? Please listen to this. A healthy spirit will conquer adversity. But what can you do when your spirit is crushed? So if you allow your spirit to be crushed, you are not now pursuing God. You are not now hearing the voice of God. Listen to this. If you stop hearing the voice of God, then in that moment, you're only hearing the voice of those who are attacking you, the voice of the enemy. And when you start listening to that, you will have a broken spirit. When you no longer have a healthy spirit, you will literally give into a crushed spirit, and you won't really want to face life. Two more verses of Scripture. Psalms 138, verse 7. David is speaking. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you will revive me. You will stretch forth your hand against the wrath of my enemies, and your right hand will save me. Now, what's David telling me? He says, I will refuse to focus on how and why I was treated unfairly. The fact that you're treated unfairly is going to happen because we belong to the company of Jesus. He was treated unfairly. He did not deserve his punishment. He did not deserve to die on the cross. He did not deserve his sufferings. He did not deserve the abandonment of his own family and friends, but he suffered that. Paul did not deserve the punishment that he received. He did not deserve being attacked and left for dead and have to be let down over a wall because the whole leadership of the city is rising up against him. He didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve to have his head chopped off.
So let me sum up because I've got about 45 seconds. You said earlier that to get in the face of God and stay in the presence of God is the absolute only solution you have. That is the solution.
And I'm going to tell you what that presence is in our next session, because I think this is vitally important. What is that presence? How do I get into the presence of God?
So living in the presence, we then see ourselves as God sees us and not as our enemy sees us.
No, and not even as you see yourself.
And then we hear his voice instead of the voice of the adversaries.
Yes.
So the key is intimate relationship with God, prayer time, seeking God, and in his presence there's what? Fullness of joy.
Yes.
And the joy of the Lord is what? Your strength.
Yes.
Well, I'm telling you what, we got a lot more coming with Tony.